page 55 talks about pacemaker codes, and these are important and they will definitely be on the registry. Um, because of technology keeps improving, we're up to 5-letter codes, but these first three are what's important, most important. So each pacemaker is explained by a code. So if they, for instance, if they say, oh, what kind of pacemaker do you have? You could say, oh, I have an AAI or whatever, or a DDD. And so um, this is what those letters mean. So the first letter refers to the chamber that is paced. So is the atrium being paced, is the ventricle being paced, or are both being paced? The second letter is the chamber being sensed. So again, is the atrium being sensed, is the ventricle being sensed, or are both? And then letter 3 is the sensing response, meaning what is the response of the pacemaker, or sometimes referred to as the mode. What mode is the pacemaker in? And it's always going to be either inhibited or dual, meaning both are inhibited. Triggered is only used during testing of the pacemaker. So it's either always going to be inhibited, referring to one chamber, or dual, meaning both are inhibited. Okay, so we'll start here. The AAI. So for the AAI, the atria are paced, the atria are sensed, and if the pacemaker senses intrinsic activity, meaning activity from the actual patient, if the heart fires, then the pacemaker will respond by not responding. It inhibits itself. So it will only pace, it will only kick in when the atrial rhythm falls below the threshold, meaning falls below a particular number that was programmed in. So AAI, again, would be a single chamber, and the atrium is paced, the atrium is what is being sensed, and it is intrinsic. Of course, it can't be dual because it's not a dual chamber, so it has to be inhibited. VVI, same thing. The ventricles are what's being paced, the ventricles are sensed, and the pacemaker senses intrinsic activity, meaning if the pacemaker senses that the patient's own ventricle is firing, then it won't respond. It will respond by not responding. It will inhibit itself. And it will kick in once the ventricular rhythm falls below a certain predetermined amount, the threshold. So VDD, the first number refers to the ventricle is what's being paced. The D stands for both chambers are what are being sensed, and dual meaning both chambers are inhibited. So both ventricles are paced, both atria and ventricles are sensed, and if the pacemaker senses activity from the atria or ventricles, it responds by not responding. It inhibits itself. This type of pacemaker is used in patients with a reliable sinus node, a reliable natural pacemaker, but with an AV block. And if you look on your picture, the AV block is there, at the junction between the atria and the ventricles. A DDD, the pacemaker paces both chambers. It senses both chambers, and both chambers are inhibited if there is intrinsic activity. So meaning it will kick in when needed. Okay, so then sometimes you'll have this fourth letter, and what that means is that it is capable of adjusting the heart rate, meaning because normally your pacemaker is set to fire at a certain time, certain heart rate all the time. But these newer ones can actually increase the heart rate when demand for output is necessary. For instance, during exercise. So when the patient exercises, these pacemakers are able to increase the heart rate. Okay, and a lot of this information I got from ecgpedia.org, and so I didn't, for these two definitions, I didn't alter them. They just come straight from this website. And so this describes what a bi-V pacemaker is, and then what a bi-V ICD is. So it can be a bi-V pacemaker, which also you can also see it as a CRT, which is cardiac resynchronization therapy pacemaker. Or they can get a bi-V ICD, which is a bi-V pacemaker plus it's a defibrillator, an internal defibrillator. Of the two, these are the most common, the bi-V ICD. If you're going to put in a bi-V, you might as well make it a ICD as well, and a defibrillator. And so these will deliver a shock to the patient's heart if the patient goes into VFib, ventricular fibrillation.